Consider a compelling paradox that dictates much of human history and commerce. Why do extraordinary ideas, revolutionary products, and life-altering philosophies often fail entirely, while seemingly ordinary concepts become global cultural phenomena?
Well, the answer has absolutely nothing to do with the intrinsic quality of the idea itself. It is, um, it is actually quite counterintuitive.
I mean, we always assume the best idea wins, but you are saying it depends entirely on the precise psychological state of the person receiving that idea.
Precisely. If the recipient is not cognitively prepared for the solution, if they are not in the right state, the most brilliant innovation will be entirely ignored.
Wow. So today we are embarking on a deep dive into a legendary framework known as the 5 levels of awareness. And I want to speak directly to you, our listener, because understanding this will change how you view your own limitations.
And while this framework was originally devised to map consumer behavior and, predict purchasing decisions, it actually reveals something much deeper.
It reveals the profound, invisible progression of human consciousness itself. We undergo this exact progression whenever we face profound change, seek to build wealth, or attempt to fundamentally redefine our identities. What if the most severe limitations in your life are not the problems you are actively fighting, but the invisible assumptions you have not yet noticed? Let us unpack this.
To understand how transformation occurs within this framework, we must first establish the baseline condition before any change begins. This initial state is complete unawareness.
And we should clarify, unawareness is never a lack of intelligence, is it?
No, absolutely not. It is simply the cognitive inability to recognize that a problem exists. For the unaware individual, her current reality feels perfectly normal.
Because it is all they have ever known.
Exactly. The brain is fundamentally an adaptation machine. When an organism is exposed to a constant environment, the nervous system actually stops registering it. It does this to conserve metabolic energy.
Wait, I want to pause on that. The metabolic energy aspect is fascinating.
It is a critical biological constraint. The human brain constitutes roughly 2% of our total body weight, but it consumes, 20% of the body's energy.
That is a staggering ratio.
It is. So to optimize for survival, the brain turns repetitive cultural narratives and daily environments into invisible background noise. It simply stops spending energy on them.
We can compare this state to a smartphone's background operating system. It is running constantly, dictating every single function of the device, yet it remains completely invisible to the user.
Until a catastrophic glitch occurs.
Right. You simply do not realize the system exists until it fails and forces a hard reset. I find it fascinating how entire generations remain completely blind to societal assumptions.
Assumptions that future generations inevitably look back upon and find entirely absurd.
Certainly, history offers numerous precedents where deeply harmful practices were entirely normalized simply because they were ubiquitous. I mean, there was an era when physicians actively recommended smoking for throat irritation.
Or consider how society has frequently celebrated extreme stress, sleep deprivation, and chronic burnout as absolute proof of professional ambition.
It is like living your entire life wearing heavily tinted glasses. You do not realize the world is not genuinely that color. So what is the mechanism behind that historical blindness?
The mechanism is rooted in neurobiology. When an entire generation shares the same environment and the same cultural narratives, those narratives cease to be processed as subjective ideas.
They become facts.
Yes, the brain categorizes them as objective facts, akin to the law of gravity. The brain expends zero energy questioning the foundation of its reality until it is physically or psychologically forced to do so.
Because unawareness is a self-sustaining biological illusion.
Indeed. A specific external force is required to shatter it. The cognitive operating system must experience that catastrophic glitch we mentioned.
Which brings into focus the trigger that forces an individual into the second stage, known as problem aware.
And this transition is rarely pleasant.
Awareness rarely begins with positive inspiration. I actually must challenge a very prominent cultural narrative here. Modern society places immense value on chasing inspiration, do we not?
We certainly do. We are constantly instructed to seek motivation, construct vision boards, and engage in positive visualization.
But I argue that dissatisfaction, friction, and acute pain are actually far more productive states for genuine human growth.
That makes perfect sense neurologically. Comfort encourages the brain to remain on metabolic autopilot.
Pain, conversely, demands active, immediate presence. It interrupts routine in a manner that comfort fundamentally never can.
The neurological mechanism validating your argument is known as prediction error.
Prediction error. Please, explain how that works.
Well, the human brain continuously predicts the near future based on past experiences. It releases a steady baseline of dopamine when those predictions are correct.
So as long as tomorrow looks like yesterday, we feel fine.
Precisely. But when reality abruptly violates those predictions, when a reliable career strategy suddenly fails or a marriage unexpectedly dissolves, the dopamine levels plummet.
And that drop creates the severe prediction error.
Yes, the brain registers this discrepancy as a literal survival threat. It dramatically increases attention, flooding the system with adrenaline and cortisol.
Forcing the individual to investigate the fracture in their reality.
The individual is violently pulled from the unaware stage into the problem-aware stage. They now perceive the glitch in their operating system, and the discomfort is impossible to ignore.
The moment the brain registers this severe discomfort, the natural reflex is to search for a remedy to alleviate the pain and, restore cognitive equilibrium.
Which propels the individual into the third stage, known as solution-aware.
However, observing modern behavior, I notice a significant trap waiting in this stage. We see highly intelligent people transition from initial productive curiosity straight into severe information overload.
It's a modern epidemic.
Consider your own internet browser, listener. It is likely filled with 50 unread self-improvement bookmarks, representing an illusion of progress while your life remains entirely static. So, what does this all mean? How does the brain process this sudden abundance of answers?
Modern society has definitively solved the historical problem of information scarcity, only to replace it entirely with analysis paralysis.
We have never had more access to strategies, philosophies, and expert opinions.
Yet, this abundance creates an overwhelming cognitive load. When the individual enters the solution-aware stage today, they discover that the modern attention economy has evolved.
It is no longer a simple competition for clicks or views, is it?
No, it has become a fierce competition for belief. Choosing a solution is no longer about selecting a practical strategy.
It is about choosing which worldview deserves your trust amid thousands of conflicting expert voices.
And evaluating competing worldviews requires massive executive function. This quickly depletes the brain's energy reserves, resulting in the paralysis you described.
Individuals find themselves completely frozen because they are attempting to navigate an environment where every single digital platform promotes a different, utterly convincing reality.
It is incredibly disorienting.
If one expert claims a specific diet will save your life, and another equally credentialed expert claims that same diet will destroy your cardiovascular system, the brain cannot simply process the data.
It must evaluate the underlying philosophy of the provider.
Intelligent individuals spend years consuming this contradictory information, reading every book and listening to every analysis, mistakenly believing that data accumulation equates to forward momentum.
To escape this paralysis, the individual's internal filtering mechanism must necessarily evolve. They reach a threshold where they stop looking for general data.
And they start desperately seeking certainty.
This search for certainty marks the transition into the fourth stage, product-aware.
In this stage, the search narrows significantly.
It does. The individual stops researching the overarching philosophy of fitness or wealth creation and begins evaluating specific coaches, distinct therapeutic methods, or particular software programs.
The individual fully accepts that solutions exist in the world. The singular question driving their behavior now becomes, why should I trust this specific solution over the thousands of others?
And that brings us to the currency of trust.
Here is where it gets highly fascinating. We must consider the impact of artificial intelligence and algorithmic content generation on this search for certainty.
It has changed everything. Technology can now generate endless articles, instructional videos, and even fully manufactured digital personalities in a matter of seconds.
Information itself now possesses zero scarcity. Consequently, trust has become the rarest and most valuable resource on the planet.
People now investigate consistency, authenticity, and historical reputation long before they ever evaluate technical expertise.
I theorize that the future belongs entirely to those who demonstrate deep wisdom and genuine understanding over long periods. The individuals who simply possess the largest volume of data will be rendered completely obsolete by technology.
Your theory aligns perfectly with behavioral economics. When information is infinite, the human biological marker for safety reverts to observing consistent behavior over time.
We look for a reliable anchor.
Yes, and once that anchor is found, once absolute trust is established and the perfect path is identified, we enter the fifth stage, most aware.
So in this stage, the individual has the correct strategy, They trust the provider, and they possess all necessary knowledge.
Yet widespread hesitation frequently remains.
Why is that?
We discover that the final obstacle to change is existential rather than intellectual. The intellectual problem is completely solved, but the physical execution remains frozen.
Because knowledge never guarantees transformation. Purchasing a comprehensive, scientifically validated fitness program does not artificially manufacture the discipline required to wake up at 5 in the morning.
It certainly does not.
I suspect the true obstacle here is identity. Genuine change requires abandoning an older version of ourselves.
It requires a profound letting go.
Transformation is rarely a simple addition to our lives. It is fundamentally a subtraction. It requires the subtraction of familiar habits, comfortable environments, and deeply ingrained excuses that have protected our egos for decades.
Action feels psychologically expensive because it essentially demands the death of the previous self.
The death of the previous self, that is a heavy psychological toll.
The brain processes identity change through the very same neural pathways it uses to process physical pain and social rejection.
Wait, really? The same neural pathways as physical pain?
Yes. If your current identity is deeply intertwined with friends who bond over complaining about their lack of progress, achieving success means you will lose common ground with your social circle.
And the brain calculates that social isolation is a threat to survival.
Therefore, it actively sabotages the new behavior to protect the existing identity, which has historically kept the organism safe and socially integrated.
You are asking the individual to grieve their current identity in exchange for a future they have not yet experienced. This psychological toll is immense.
It reframes human behavior entirely.
We often assume that humans harbor a deep fear of failure. In reality, failure is incredibly familiar. It is predictable.
We know exactly how to handle failure.
I propose that humans are actually terrified of becoming the entirely new, unfamiliar person that success requires them to be. The resistance is not a lack of willpower.
It is a subconscious survival mechanism protecting the known self against the unknown self.
But when an individual manages to overcome that survival mechanism, pays the psychological toll, and successfully takes action, they complete the transformation. They achieve their goal.
However, there's a hidden danger that emerges in the aftermath of success. If we map the trajectory of human consciousness, we find a hidden sixth stage.
A sixth stage. What happens after success?
The cycle threatens to close itself again, creating a completely new blind spot, unless a specific cognitive framework is deliberately adopted. The victor becomes highly vulnerable to their own triumph.
I have observed this pattern in successful entrepreneurs, artists, and leaders. They reach the pinnacle of their field and suddenly their growth halts entirely.
They become trapped in a new, invisible reality of their own making.
Please explain the mechanics of how success directly manufactures a new form of unawareness.
There is a dangerous, almost invisible progression that occurs neurologically following repeated success. Success creates confidence.
Which is initially a positive outcome.
It is. But over time, as the positive feedback loops continue, that confidence solidifies into absolute certainty.
And the brain loves certainty.
Because, as we established earlier, it requires vastly less metabolic energy than questioning reality. Eventually, this certainty degrades into rigidity.
The individual begins protecting their status as an expert.
Rigidity quietly closes the door to all future learning because the individual stops asking beginner questions. They incorrectly assume their past success guarantees future understanding.
They stop noticing prediction errors.
Exactly. They dismiss contradictory evidence as anomalies rather than signals of a changing environment.
They have essentially returned to the unaware stage, blinded this time not by societal conditioning but by their own accumulated expertise.
The operating system has hardened.
And they are completely oblivious to the fact that the external world has updated without them. So how does one combat this neurological hardening?
We look to the Japanese concept of shoshin, which translates as beginner's mind.
Beginner's mind.
This philosophy dictates that true mastery is not the absence of uncertainty. Rather, mastery is the permanent, deliberate willingness to approach reality with profound openness and humility.
Regardless of one's accumulated knowledge.
It requires actively overriding the brain's desire for certainty. The practitioner of shoshin deliberately assumes they do not have the complete picture, maintaining the curiosity of a novice even after decades of experience.
Is it possible that reaching the absolute pinnacle of awareness actually requires the deeply humbling realization that there is no final level to reach?
That is a profound way to phrase it.
The moment you believe you have permanently completed the journey of awareness, you have instantly returned to the beginning, trapped inside a new, self-constructed, invisible reality.
True awareness is not a destination. It is the continuous maintenance of an open perceptual state.
Synthesizing this entire progression from complete unawareness to the cultivation of a beginner's mind, the overarching theme becomes undeniably clear.
The greatest investment a human being can make is simply learning to notice.
The value of traversing these levels of awareness is not the acquisition of new tactical data to deploy in the market. The ultimate value is the fundamental alteration of perception itself.
Once a mechanism of perception changes, the individual's reality changes in tandem. They become capable of seeing the background operating system of their own lives.
The next time you, our listener, experience profound resistance to change or find yourself paralyzed by an infinite menu of choices, I advise you to pause.
Cease consuming new information.
And instead ask yourself, which level of awareness am I operating from today? Are you defending a rigid identity? Are you trapped evaluating competing worldviews?
The answer to that question will reveal the exact next version of yourself waiting to emerge.
Furthermore, I leave you with a final implication to deeply ponder. If our individual awareness is constantly evolving through these discrete, complex stages, what happens when two people in a close relationship are operating from entirely different levels of awareness at the exact same time?
That is a highly complex dynamic.
Imagine a scenario where one partner is suddenly forced into the problem-aware stage by a major life event, while the other remains comfortably rooted in the unaware stage, treating the environment as an unquestionable fact.
The friction there would be immense.
How does that invisible mismatch shape the way we connect, miscommunicate, and grow with the people we love? Perhaps our deepest interpersonal conflicts are rarely disagreements about objective reality. They're simply collisions between entirely different stages of consciousness.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.